Hi, folks. I'm off camera today. I got something in my eye. It hurts and it doesn't look very pretty right now, so I've pieced together an episode for you. The original audio part of some of this was a bit echoey, so I've applied an audio effect that I hope improves the sound quality. Other than that, it might be interesting to see some of the differences in the way that I did videos in the beginning and the way I do them now. You can let me know what you think. Alrighty, on with January 14th. Hi, and welcome to this day in history for January 14th. January 14th is the 14th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 351 days remaining to the end of the year, except for leap years, which have 352 days remaining to the end of the year. For today's word, let's talk about a phobia word. Interestingly, phobias are grouped under different classifications. For example, you've got your psychological phobias, such as zoophobia, the abnormal, disabling fear of animals of any kind, excluding humans, or chemical phobias that describe chemical aversions, such as something that resists water being hydrophobic. There are biological terms that describe organisms that dislike certain conditions, such as acidophobia, and medical terms that describe hypersensitivity to certain stimulus, such as photophobia. There are also everyday common use and cultural media-inspired phobia words that describe dislike, fear, hatred, or aversion of a particular thing or subject. Phobia words are named after a character from Greek mythology who was the god and personification of fear and panic. That's God with a lowercase g here. As an aside, some phobia words also have an opposite term with the ending of phile or philic, such as hydrophilic, meaning something that has an affinity for water, as compared to hydrophobic, which means repelling, resisting, or avoiding water. See how that works? All that explanation out of the way, let's start with a fairly modern one, technophobia. This is the fear, aversion, or hatred of technology. Actually, the Luddites were technophobes. Might not have been the very first technophobes, but they were notable ones. We've talked about the Luddites before. In their case, the original Luddites were weavers in England in the 1800s. They actually had still been hand weaving fabric when along came factories and textile machines where fabric could be woven much faster with less labor. The Luddites, presumably named after a weaver named Ned Ludd, feared they'd be put out of work, which eventually they, in fact, were. They conducted a guerrilla movement of smashing and destroying weaving machines, and it turned into more or less of a war. Went on for about 5 years, quieting down only when stern prosecution, including execution and penal transfer, which in that period of English history means that they were shipped off to Australia. Since then, the term Luddite has come to apply to anyone who opposes industrialization, computerization, or new technologies in general. Technophobes. Moving on, we're going to start with the year 1639 with the first colonial constitution. In Hartford, Connecticut, the first constitution in the American colonies, called the Fundamental Orders, were adopted by representatives of Wethersfield, Windsor, and Hartford. In 1741, the infamous American trader Benedict Arnold was born. On this day in 1784, the Continental Congress ratified the Treaty of Paris, ending the War for Independence. On this day in 1875, Albert Schweitzer was born. He was a theologian, musician, and philosopher, also a prize-winning physician. He was born on this day in Germany. He lived most of his life serving humanity as a missionary in Africa. And when he won the Nobel Prize, he used it to support his mission by building or adding on to the hospital that he had there. On this day in 1920, John Dodge, who with his brother Horace founded the Dodge Brothers Company, which was once America's third largest automaker, later became part of Chrysler. Well, John Dodge died on January 14, 1920, at the age of 55. On this day in 1943, FDR became the first president to travel on official presidential business by air when he took a trip across the Atlantic to meet Winston Churchill at Casablanca in North Africa. Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio first met in 1952. They dated for a couple years and got married on January 14, 1954. They honeymooned in Japan, but while they were there, Marilyn got a call to go perform for the troops in South Korea, which she did, but she left Joe in Japan on their honeymoon. He didn't like that very much. Unfortunately, things didn't get better from there, and they ended up divorcing about 9 months later. I suspect he continued to love her for the rest of his life because he was the one that came and helped her out when she went in the hospital, and he was the one who paid for her funeral when she died. On this day in 1969, an explosion aboard the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise killed 27 people in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A rocket had accidentally detonated. Now, how exactly does that happen? I'm not sure, but anyway. The explosion destroyed 15 planes and injured more than 300 people. On this day in 1970, Diana Ross and the Supremes performed their final concert. They were an extremely successful American pop group in the 1960s, a group whose 12 number-one hits in the first full decade of the rock and roll era placed them only behind Elvis and the Beatles in terms of chart dominance. They helped define the very sound of the 60s. But like fellow icons, Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, they came apart in the first year of the 70s. The curtain closed for good on Diana Ross and the Supremes on January 14, 1970 at the Frontier Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. When I first recorded the video that I've edited this one from, I wasn't doing Song of the Day just yet, but I know we like a Song of the Day, so I'll tell you about the song that came to mind as I was reading about Diana Ross and the Supremes, and that was Baby Love. Baby Love by the Supremes is a timeless classic that showcases the magic of Motown's golden era. Released in September of 1964, this catchy tune was crafted by the legendary songwriting trio of Holland, Dozier, Holland, who were instrumental in defining the Motown sound. The song features Diana Ross's sweet lead vocals, complemented by the harmonious backing of Florence Ballard and Mary Wilson, creating a sound that's both infectious and enduring. Upon its release, Baby Love quickly climbed the charts, securing the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 in the United States and also topped the UK singles chart. This achievement made the Supremes the first Motown act to have more than one American #1 single, solidifying their status as pop icons. The song's universal appeal and catchy melody have ensured its place in music history, with Rolling Stone ranking it among the 500 greatest songs of all time. Beyond its commercial success, Baby Love is a testament to the collaborative genius of Motown's artists and producers. The track's polished production, combined with its heartfelt lyrics about longing and love, resonated with audiences worldwide. Even decades later, the song's charm remains undiminished, continuing to captivate listeners and inspire new generations of musicians. In essence, Baby Love isn't just a song, it's a piece of musical history that encapsulates the spirit and innovation of 1960s Motown, leaving an indelible mark on the landscape of popular music. Baby Love by the Supremes. As always, there's a link in the description. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoy this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That playlist lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page. It's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. All those links in that description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.